It wasn't even his best race distance. His shoe was untied. At 6'5", he was uncommonly tall for a sprinter. Plus, he had scoliosis, and he was notoriously bad at getting out of the blocks, which is a really big deal in short races where every microsecond counts. But ultimately, none of the things that should have been weaknesses really mattered, nor did him taking his foot off the gas several meters before the finish line once he knew that no one was going to catch him. After the race, he was called superhuman, otherworldly, a mutant. Sports journalists have relied on hyperbole and exaggerations of athletic prowess since the earliest days of sports media. But this time, it was just not possible to overstate how incredible this performance had been. He was the best sprinter who had ever set foot on a track and the undisputed fastest human in the world. Today is Saturday, August 16th, 2025, and on this day in 2008, Usain Bolt set a new world record in the 100 meters while winning the first of 3 gold medals at the Beijing Olympics. In this episode, we're going to talk about Bolt's origins as a runner, his path to Beijing, and the races that made him a legend. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and you are listening to Today in Running History. It is once again Salty Saturday, which means that today's episode is sponsored by Salt Stick, my all-time favorite way to consume electrolytes on the run. I had my long run this morning and it was absolutely pouring rain when I left. And by the time I got to where my run club was meeting, it had stopped, but it was about 90% humidity for the entire 12-mile run. And I'm somebody who sweats a lot regardless, but when the humidity is like that, I lose basically a bathtub's worth of sweat in just a 2-hour run. And we all know that when you sweat, you don't just lose water, you also lose electrolytes, including sodium, magnesium, potassium, and these are needed to regulate fluid balance. Basically, you cannot be adequately hydrated on water alone. On my 12-miler this morning, I brought along some fast chews from Salt Stick, a combination of the lemon lime uncaffeinated ones and the citrus flavor ones with caffeine. And then I alternated those every half hour. And these don't keep you from losing sodium and other minerals through sweat, but Salt Stick makes sure that everything you lose is replenished. Listeners of Today in Running History can always save 20% off your purchase from Salt Stick using the link that I will put in the episode description. So check them out and happy Salty Saturday. Now let's talk about Usain Bolt. Google images of the Sherwood content neighborhood of Trelawney Parish, Jamaica, and you're not likely to come away terribly impressed. Most of the houses in this inland community of 1,500 are dilapidated. The landscape is lush, but not especially noteworthy, and it's nearly 100 miles from Kingston, Jamaica's capital. Nothing about this impoverished village gave it much global significance until Beijing, when Sherwood content became known as the hometown of Jamaica's second favorite son, trailing only Bob Marley in terms of cultural recognition. Bolt's 2008 showing in Beijing was not a Cinderella story. He was not an underdog by any means and never had been. But as with many Olympic performances, it was the first time many average people, some of whom only paid attention to the sport every 4 years, understood just how impressive he was. For those watching at home, as well as the 91,000 spectators present in the National Stadium, nicknamed, quote, the Bird's Nest, it took a couple of watches of the replay to fully comprehend what they had just seen. When a race is less than 10 seconds long, that's usually the case, and it was impossible to not recognize that Bolt had decisively crushed the competition. But the replay allowed viewers to see that when the other races were reaching their top speed, at about 4 seconds in, Bolt was accelerating. Slowed down, the footage showed just how poor his start out of the blocks was and how much ground he had to overcome. They were watching a sprinter with a kick, and that's just not a normal thing. As an athlete, of course, Usain St. Leo Bolt has never been anything close to normal. Born to a father who, up until his death earlier this year, owned a small grocery store in the village and a mother who worked in the fields, he was the second of three brothers and also had an older half sister. Bolt showed an early prowess for cricket and, until middle school, often skipped track practice in order to play it. When he was in seventh grade, his parents pushed him to focus on running, in part because they didn't like the political aspect of cricket. Also urging Bolt to switch exclusively to track was his high school coach, former Olympic sprinter Pablo McNeil. Under McNeil's tutelage, 15-year-old Bolt became the youngest ever male world junior champion in the 200 meters in 2002, held that year in Kingston. Over the next few years, Bolt grew in prominence in the junior ranks, but his performance was hampered by injuries, primarily tied to the severe scoliosis he had contended with all his life. Because of the condition, one leg was shorter than the other, resulting in frequent problems with his hamstring. After failing to advance out of the prelims at the 2004 Athens Olympics, Bolt approached veteran coach Glenn Mills. The partnership turned out to be exactly what Bolt needed to reach his full, amazing potential. Under Coach Mills, Bolt was able to train in a way that allowed him to better compensate for his scoliosis. Though he had no first place finishes in all of 2005, it's an understatement to say that he more than made up for it later. Concentrating on improving his strength and flexibility, Bolt began his rise to dominance by breaking the national record in the 200 at the Jamaica Championships in 2006 with a time of 19.75 seconds. It was after this performance that he was first called Lightning Bolt, perhaps the most obvious and fitting nickname in sports history. For anyone who is not super familiar with the physical differences between different types of runners, one distinction is that middle and long distance runners can, to a degree, be built through hard work and proper training. Sprinters also have to work at it, of course, as proven by Bolt's turnaround. But sprinters are born, not made. To be truly great, they must be genetically blessed with the right combination of fast and slow twitch muscle structure and explosive power derived from both upper and lower body strength. Without it, no training regimen can elevate even the most determined and disciplined athlete to greatness. Bolt was born to be a sprinter. His natural talent is obviously more of a blessing than a curse, but any criticism surrounding him has been targeted at the way he has, at times, not seemed to take the sport seriously enough, relying too heavily on his natural abilities. He has been called out for his post-win dances and, notably, the way he eased up before crossing the finish line in Beijing. Some called that arrogance, but how can you be humble when you are Usain Bolt? He followed his 100-meter win, done with one of the largest margins in Olympics history and in which he was covering 40 feet per second at his top speed, by turning 22 the next day, then earning golds in the 200 and 4x100 relay, both of which were also new world records, though he was later stripped of the relay medal because his teammate tested positive for a banned substance. So great a leap did Bolt represent in the arena of sprinting, it was like going from the Model T to a Bugatti overnight. Just what made Bolt so incredibly fast was his ability to harness his natural physical gifts and use them to their full potential. Most of the world's top sprinters are tall, but not nearly as tall as Bolt, who at 6'5" is considerably taller than the 5'10" to 6'2" range typically considered ideal. But Bolt's raw speed and fast turnover, combined with his enormous stride length, meant that he simply covered more ground in less time than anyone else. Despite what some people believed, he trained hard, focusing on core strength and efficient form. Bolt followed up the Beijing Games with gold in these same three events in the 2009 World Championships in Berlin. He enjoyed a solid 5+ years of absolute domination on the track until his old nemesis, hamstring injury, recurred in 2014. He was able to recover and consistently beat rising American star Justin Gatlin and other newcomers over the next couple years. He wasn't invincible and did lose to Gatlin, Tyson Gay, and Asafa Powell. But when you can count an athlete's losses on one hand, to call them anything other than amazing would be pushing it. Bolt's final Olympics was Rio in 2016, where he completed the triple-triple, winning 3 golds in 3 events in 3 consecutive Olympics. He retired in 2017 at the age of 30, having solidified a legacy that few athletes in the history of the world can even conceive of. His total medal count in major events stands at 23 gold, 5 silver, and 1 bronze. He still holds the world records in the 100 and 200, though a few current sprinters are knocking on the door. Today, the father of 3 is Jamaica's global tourism ambassador, dabbles in music production, and is active in his Usain Bolt Foundation, the mission of which is to enrich and improve education, youth development, and culture in his home country. And he gets to wake up and, if he so chooses, just look in the mirror all day to see a goat staring back at him, which I imagine is pretty damn cool. And that is all for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please go like, comment, share, subscribe, rate the show 5 stars, turn on alerts, and then send this episode to someone who is Jamaican you crazy. Once again, it is Salty Saturday, and listeners of the pod can save 20% off your purchase from SaltStick by using my link in the episode description. Join me tomorrow as we hear about what has been called the dirtiest race in Olympic history. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and this has been Today in Running History. With it, no, not with it, without it, Bolt was born to be a sprinter. His natural talent is obviously more a blessing than a curse, but any criticism once again, it's Salty Saturday, and listeners of the pod can save 20% off your purchase from SaltStick by using my code in the episode. No, it's a link. My link. That's not helpful. There is no code. It's a link. Okay. Once again, it is Salty Saturday, and